Now we want to talk about selectable record items. You remember from the last video about the dynamic grade sheet that this is the situation. We have the instructor who grades the captain and the first officer. In the example we had just 3 grade items: perform takeoff, perform holding and landing. But in the real world scenario, of course, we will have many more items. Now, it might be required in certain situations to allow the instructor to select certain record items. It might be the case that one of the crew members has not performed the holding. For example, only the captain performed the holding, but not the first officer. And I want to show you how this can be controlled in the Mint system. Our instructor has 2 ways in Mint to control if a record item is assigned to the student or not. The first one is directly on the form itself, and I already did this for this little presentation. You can see here that I have another radio button, and this radio button points to the same data source as all the others, but I selected this remove assignment here. And that is exactly this meaning not applicable. So if the grader, our instructor, if he clicks here, then the current record item will not be assigned to the student. That is one possibility, and I will show you later on the grade sheet how that looks like. This is done on the form itself by selecting the remove assignment check button here. Okay, the other way is new now on our dynamic grade sheets. And we go to the first to the tree management page because we have to activate a certain property. And it is an event record item property. This is a system property because it's always there. You cannot delete it. And it is called by default selectable on form. So we go to the activate properties tab. And let's say for our objectives, for all our objectives, we want to select it here. And by default, apply. By default, we can say yes. Let's see how this looks like now in our product. We go to the product, the same product that we used in our last video. Here is the sim session. And if you see now, for all our record items that we have here, we have this property available, right? Of course, at the moment it has no value because they were all there already. But if you select them now, you will see that the selectable on form is by default set to yes. So for example, I want to say the perform holding is selectable because it's not always taught. Then you could do this. You take the perform holding, and you see now selectable on form is yes. And that means that the instructor on the form can make this record item or the grading item to be shown or not. In this case, if the appear on form is set to no, by default, the perform holding will not appear. By default, the perform holding does not show up. So we will have 2 different examples here. Let's say for the landing, it's also selectable, but appear on form is yes. So here we have both items set to yes. Perform holding, we have the selectable on form yes. And for the perform takeoff, we say appear on form yes and selectable on form no. And you will then later see how this looks like when it comes to grading. Okay, and the last thing that we have to do now is we have to schedule that again. There's still our request, create project. That's pretty simple. Schedule. Okay, let's see who the instructor is. Mike McGowan again. And we take Captain 6 as the captain and Captain 5 as our first officer. Sign. And the last thing that we have to do is we have to make it planning complete by the end of the month. And now we can look on our web portal how the grade sheet looks like. Okay, here we are on our iPad. Let's log into the web portal. Mac Gowan. Log in. We go to the sign-off page, and here we have our two captains. Sign off. The first thing that I would like to explain here is that this not applicable, the NA, refers to every individual student. So if you say, for example, Captain 5 has not performed takeoff, you could say NA like this. So the perform takeoff grading item, the perform takeoff record item, will not be assigned to Captain 5. And you can say, okay, and Captain 6 received a 4 on the grade scale. So Captain 6 in this case will receive the perform takeoff, and Captain 5 will not receive that grading item. That is with this not applicable radio button. This controls it on an individual basis for every student. Now, with this other possibility, you go to the selected record items, and you can see now that the landing is selected. This is exactly what we did. And the perform holding is not selected. But you can go now and say, okay, perform holding, apply. And now you can see that perform holding is shown for both students. Let's say the perform holding was done only for Captain 6. Then you give him a 4. And Captain 5 did not perform holding. So again, he receives an NA. This way, the grade sheet gives you all the flexibility you need.